New Delhi, you're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. Government shutdown looms in U.S. as the House of Representatives fails to pass funding bill. Move pushes government closer to a holiday shutdown. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says U.S.-Europe must work together to secure Ukraine peace. In Nigeria, at least 35 children killed in a stampede at a school fair, 8 people arrested, and investigation initiated to probe the cause. And in sports, India beats West Indies by 60 runs in third women's T20 innings, clinch 3-match series 2-1. And on to the details now. Government shutdown looms in the U.S. after the House of Representatives failed to pass a revised short-term spending bill endorsed by President-elect Donald Trump. The bill needed a two-thirds majority in the House to pass, but lawmakers rejected it with 174 in support and 235 against. The rejection comes just a day before the federal government is set to run out of cash, threatening widespread disruptions, including potential delays in holiday travel. The bill, which resembled a previous version that Trump and Musk had criticized, included provisions to fund the government until March, when Trump will officially take office and Republicans will control both chambers of the Congress. It also proposed $100 billion in disaster relief and aimed to lift the debt ceiling for 2 years. While Speaker of the House of Representatives Mike Johnson expressed hope that the bill will be passed on Friday night so that it can be sent to the Senate.
I hope that this vote passes tonight. We will send it to the Senate. We will extend funding, and we'll come back, and we will have the America First agenda come in roaring in January for the American people. Thank you so much.
Now let us explain some terms for better understanding of what may happen in the United States, where most of the non-essential services are going to be affected in case of a shutdown, which means pay for most of the workers will be delayed while U.S. Constitution specifies that the president continues to get paid.
Now, what is the debt ceiling? Borrowing by the federal government when it runs a deficit limit on debt ceiling set by the Congress. Currently, that limit is $31.4 trillion US, and the current stopgap bill is due to expire on December 20th. So what happens in case of a government shutdown? Under the Anti-Deficiency Act, federal government cannot spend without the Congress's approval. If the Congress fails to enact 12 annual appropriation bills, it will cease all non-essential functions, and that is called a government shutdown. The continuation of funding at previous year's appropriation level is Continuing Resolution or CR. Under this, temporary spending bills fund government operations until a specified date. Most of the essential services such as U.S. Postal Service, Social Security Administration, Medicare, food benefits, social agencies, federal courts, U.S. embassies and consulates will remain unaffected. While training of new air traffic controllers would not be possible, foreign aid, including new aid to shelter migrants, will be difficult to execute. National parks, monuments, ranger, restrooms, help desk will remain closed. Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, SEC, commodity futures trading, publication of major U.S. economic data, internal revenue will remain largely affected. There will be no loans to Small Business Administration, and funds for research, conservation and rural development programs will be hampered.
In Brussels on Thursday to reaffirm support for Ukraine ahead of second Trump term. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy attended the summit and called on Donald Trump to join forces with Europe to help save Ukraine after the conflict ends. The plea came amid concerns that the NATO skeptic U.S. president-elect might undermine Kyiv's efforts by reducing American support for the conflict.
I think that President Trump is a strong man, and I want very much to have him on our side. For me, it's very important. I want to discuss with him more details about this war. I think it's very important because he was not in this war, because he was not the president. It's understandable. And I want to share with him more details.
Well, Zelenskyy added that European security guarantees in a frozen conflict would not be enough for Ukraine, which aspires to join transatlantic military alliance NATO.
We must understand with you that we cannot live with a frozen conflict. When it comes to a ceasefire in any conflict, in any war, people know what will happen after, how it will all end. We need to know what tomorrow is in order to make a ceasefire today. Otherwise, you are going to create a frozen conflict, and that's it. And that's why Ukraine needs security guarantees, a strong position of Ukraine and security guarantees. Of course, Ukraine wants the war to end.
Meanwhile, the European Union announced additional 30 billion euros of financial support to Ukraine in 2025 after meeting with EU leaders in Brussels.
We will implement the 15 sanctions package against Russia we approved this week. This package closes loopholes and limits circumvention, and especially targets the so-called shadow fleet. Second, we have already delivered about 130 billion euros of financial support, and we will deliver an additional 30 billion euro in 2025.
While Russian President Vladimir Putin holds annual press conference in Moscow, calls for long-lasting peace with Ukraine, gathering more support. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is in Brussels, says European security guarantees would not be enough for Ukraine.
Signaling a potential shift in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed Moscow's desire for long-lasting peace rather than a short-term truce. He also voiced openness to compromise with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump and stated that Russia has no preconditions for starting talks with Ukrainian authorities.
What can I offer to the President-elect Trump when we meet? First of all, I don't know when we will meet, because he doesn't say anything about it. I haven't spoken to him for more than 4 years, and I am ready for it, of course, at any time. And I'm ready for a meeting if he wants it.
However, at his annual year-end presser, Putin acknowledged that Moscow should have launched its offensive earlier, indicating the country had not been fully prepared for a military campaign that has now stretched nearly 3 years. Despite the prolonged conflict, he reaffirmed that Russia is closer to achieving its strategic goals in Ukraine.
Combat operations are a complex thing, and therefore it is difficult and pointless to guess what lies ahead. But that is exactly what is happening, and we are moving, as you said, towards achieving our primary task. If I could look at the situation, certainly knowing what is happening now at the situation in 2022, that the decision which was made at the beginning of 2022, it should have been made earlier.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy attended a European Union summit in Brussels, where leaders aim to send a strong message of continued support for Ukraine to the incoming US administration. Zelenskyy emphasized the critical need for unity between the US and EU to counter Russian aggression and bring peace to Ukraine.
For us, it's very important, especially from the very beginning of next year. We need very much unity between the United States and EU and countries of Europe. This is very important. We need this unity to achieve peace. And I think only together the United States and Europe can really stop Putin and save Ukraine.
European leaders are also stepping up efforts to play a more active role in the peace process. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz called for Ukraine to lead its own peace initiatives, while Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban proposed a Christmas ceasefire to ease hostilities.
Just don't let thousands of young guys to die at Christmas time. That's so simple. And change the big quantity of numbers of war prisoners, let them go home to their family for the Christmas days. So it's not more than several days of peace. You know.
In addition to diplomatic efforts, financial and military support for Ukraine continues to grow. The World Bank and the United Kingdom have extended new fundings to support Ukrainian government reforms aimed at stabilizing its economy. Britain also pledged an additional $286 million in military aid to bolster Ukraine's defenses against Russia. Despite these developments, the situation on the ground remains dire, with relentless crossfire reported from both sides. Prasar Bharati for DD India.
Well, new French Prime Minister François Bayrou on Thursday said he hoped to name a government to lead the country out of its political quagmire at the weekend or by Christmas at the latest. The country was plunged into fresh chaos early this month after the far-right and left-wing joined forces to eject Bayrou's predecessor Michel Barnier from office, marking the shortest stint as Prime Minister in the Fifth Republic's history. Veteran former Justice Minister Bayrou's cabinet picks will have to negotiate the divided parliament that brought down Barnier, whose time in office foundered on his minority administration's failure to pass a state budget. A centrist ally of President Macron, Bayrou is tasked with succeeding where Barnier failed. Any budget will have to shore up France's shaky finances without triggering further censure from the far right or the left over spending cuts and tax rises to reduce the deficit. And Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan met with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif on the sidelines of a D8 summit on Thursday. Erdogan discussed the developments in Syria as well as bilateral relations with all three country leaders. He also discussed with Sisi increasing cooperation between Turkey and Egypt to help Gaza. Egypt is hosting the summit of the D8 Organization for Economic Cooperation, which also includes Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, Nigeria, Turkey and Pakistan. The D8 was established in 1997 to improve cooperation between countries stretching from Southeast Asia to Africa. And still to come in DD India News Hour. California declares a state of emergency after it confirms the first severe case of H5N1 bird flu in USA. People in storm-ravaged Mayotte struggle for water, food and shelter. And llamas and giraffes eat Christmas treats and lunch at the London Zoo. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor John Feiner has raised alarm on Pakistan's burgeoning long-range ballistic missile capabilities. Feiner said that the nuclear-armed Pakistan's ballistic missile capabilities eventually could allow it to strike targets well beyond South Asia, making it an emerging threat to the United States. Speaking a day after Washington announced a new round of sanctions related to Pakistan's ballistic missile development program, including for the first time against the state-run defense agency that oversees the program. Feiner also said the number of nuclear-armed states with missiles that can reach the U.S. homeland is very small and they tend to be adversarial. He thus asserted that it's hard for the U.S. to see Pakistan's actions as anything other than an emerging threat to the United States. Well, Pakistan has denounced U.S. sanctions on its ballistic missile program as biased and putting regional peace at risk. This in response to U.S. slapping new sanctions on Pakistan's National Development Complex and 3 firms linked to its ballistic missile program, freezing their U.S. assets and prohibiting American business with them.
The United States has imposed new sanctions on Pakistan's long-range ballistic missile program, including on the state-owned Defense Agency, National Development Complex, that oversees the program. Pakistan has termed the imposition of new sanctions by the US as unfortunate and biased. Pakistan became one of the few countries to openly possess nuclear weapons in 1998. It has refused to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty, a global agreement to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and weapons technology. The United States said the executive order targets proliferators of weapons of mass destruction and their means of delivery in light of the continuing proliferation threat of Pakistan's long-range missile development. It accused the state-owned National Development Complex, which it says is responsible for the development of ballistic missiles, of working to acquire special equipment to test and launch the projectiles. In addition to the NDC, 3 other entities are Akhtar and Sons Private Limited, Affiliates International and Rockside Enterprise, all of which are based in Karachi, while the NDC is in Islamabad. As a result of these sanctions, the entities involved will face financial and trade restrictions, including being cut off from US markets and resources. American citizens will be barred from working with the NDC and 3 companies associated with it, which will all have their US assets frozen. Bureau Report, DT India.
Now moving on to other updates, the Pentagon announced the U.S. currently has approximately 2,000 troops in Syria, more than double the previously disclosed number of 900. The U.S. has said for years that there were about 900 troops in Syria, but Pentagon spokesperson Major General Pat Ryder acknowledged there were roughly 2,000 there now. Ryder added that the additional troops are considered temporary forces that had been sent to support the counter-Islamic State militants' mission. The Pentagon was asked repeatedly about the U.S. presence in Syria in the wake of the chaotic overthrow of Syrian President Bashar Assad on December 8th. It did not disclose the increase and instead kept repeating the 900 figure. Well, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Thursday called on the international community to support Syria in achieving long-sought peace and stability. Speaking at a press encounter at UN headquarters in New York, Guterres said the people of Syria stand at a moment of history as well as a moment of opportunity. UN chief said that the political transition in the country must be led by the Syrians and by all Syrians. He added that the process must be inclusive, credible and peaceful, and all communities must be fully integrated. Guterres expressed deep concern over the situation in northern Syria, saying that extremist groups continue to pose a significant threat to the country. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund expressed readiness to help Syria meet its financial needs in these moments of transition. IMF Director of Communications, Julie Kozak, said that the fund is monitoring the situation in Syria closely. She expressed hope that the country can now begin to address its deep humanitarian and social and economic challenges and to begin the rehabilitation of the Syrian economy.
In terms of the assessment right now, the situation on the ground is indeed fluid. It's too early to make an economic assessment. We are closely monitoring the situation, and we stand ready to support the international community's efforts to assist Syria's reconstruction as needed and when conditions allow.
Well, Syria is a member of the IMF but had not participated in regular surveillance or actively engaged with the fund in over a decade. As in many situations where governments are toppled by insurgencies, the IMF will take its lead from the United Nations in determining who is the legitimate government of a country in turmoil. At this time, the fund has not recognized any faction in Syria but will continue to prepare to help when a government will be established and recognized. And the German ambassador to Egypt, Jürgen Scholz, accompanied by a German delegation, traveled to Arish on Thursday to oversee the arrival of 63 tons of humanitarian aid destined for Gaza, delivered by the German Red Cross. Scholz called the situation in Gaza unbearable and said he hoped the overall situation is going to get better.
The biggest problem right now is, of course, access. Lots of humanitarian assistance has been delivered through the border crossing at Rafah, of course, but then until the beginning of May, after the beginning of May, when Rafah border crossing has been closed, the biggest issue is to get humanitarian assistance into Gaza for the people in Gaza, and this is one of the biggest issues we are facing. We very much hope that the overall situation is going to get better, and that delivery via Rafah border crossing is possible again, hopefully very soon.
Well, a stampede at a school fun fair in the southwestern Nigerian city of Ibadan has killed 35 children and seriously injured 6 others. The incident occurred at an Islamic high school where a large crowd had gathered for a family event. Emergency services, including medical personnel and ambulances, were immediately dispatched to the scene. Security forces were also deployed to control the situation and prevent further casualties. 8 persons have been arrested, including the main sponsor of the event. Oyo State Deputy Governor Beo Lawal said the government will dig deeper into this incident as a probe has been opened into the stampede.
And from immediate inquiries that I have made, the security agencies said they were not contacted at all. The police. But the resultant effect of this very careless act is the huge death that we have recorded, unfortunately, and unavoidably too.
Nigerian President Bola Tinubu on Thursday expressed profound sadness and offered his heartfelt condolences to the grieving families over the tragic incident. Nigeria has seen several deadly stampedes in recent months. In March, 2 students died and 23 were hurt after being crushed in central Nigeria. Later that month, another stampede killed 4 women in the northern city of Bauchi, where members of the crowd pushed to get hold of the money, causing a stampede as Nigeria grappled with its worst economic crisis in a generation. And Australia has struck a new security agreement with Solomon Islands to bolster the size of the Pacific Island nation's police force. The Australian government has committed $190 million to grow the Royal Solomon Islands police force and establish a new police training centre in Honiara. Australia has been scrambling to preserve its strategic influence in Solomon Islands after China struck its own security and policing agreements with the former Prime Minister Manasa Sogavare. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and his Solomon Islands counterpart Jeremiah Maneli said the new assistance package would provide the Pacific nation with an enduring sovereign security capability.
This investment over 4 years will be guided by the Solomon Islands priorities. The package will improve funding, training and infrastructure support to grow the Royal Solomon Islands Police Force in a sustainable manner. This partnership will strengthen the Solomon Islands' domestic security, but it will also enhance its ability to contribute to regional stability.
Well, Luigi Mangione, the suspect accused of fatally shooting healthcare insurance CEO Brian Thompson, was extradited to New York on Thursday for a hearing of a new federal charges against him. Mangione faces 4 federal counts in connection with Thompson's death. He formally waived extradition and was flown from Pennsylvania to New York. He arrived in Lower Manhattan surrounded by dozens of heavily armed law enforcement officers and the city's mayor. Mangione could potentially face the death penalty if federal prosecutors decide to pursue that route. New York abolished death penalty in 2004 and the last execution took place in 1963, but the federal charge of murder by firearm could bring the possibility of death penalty. And moving on, California has declared a state of emergency as a severe case of H5N1 bird flu case has been confirmed. This is the first severe case linked to the virus reported in the United States. A patient has been hospitalized with a severe case of avian influenza A virus infection in Louisiana on December 13th. It was found that the patient had contact with the sick and dead birds in backyard flocks. Also, this is the first case of H5N1 bird flu linked to exposure to a backyard flock in the U.S. The authorities haven't found any person-to-person transmission in this case yet. A total of 61 human cases of bird flu have been reported in the United States since April 2024. And 6 days after Cyclone Chido brought widespread devastation to the Indian Ocean archipelago, residents in parts of Mayotte are still without water, food and shelter. People in storm-ravaged Mayotte implored French President Emmanuel Macron on Thursday to do more to help as he toured the overseas territory where scores are feared dead in the rubble left by Cyclone Chido. During his visit to the affected island, Macron confirmed December 23rd as a day of national mourning. Officials in France's overseas territory have only been able to confirm 31 fatalities more than 5 days after the cyclone, but some have said they fear thousands could have been killed. Well, we'll now show you this map depicting the trajectories of cyclones that are passed within 300 kilometers of the French territory of Mayotte over the past 100 years. Data from the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration shows that Mayotte is rarely in the path of cyclones due to the natural barrier of Madagascar. But Cyclone Chido bypassed Madagascar to the north, passing right over the French territory. And European aerospace group Airbus tested a removable kit which can transform a military transport aircraft A400M into a plane to fight wildfires in Spain as the world faces more virulent fires due to climate change. The test aimed to confirm the efficiency of the kit for attacking wildfires indirectly. The kit can drop over 20 tons of water or retardant into a fire. A tank and 2 discharge pipes that are installed in the cargo can be added in any of the 100 A400M transport aircraft already flying and be used as a complement to the job of the brigades fighting fires. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Dozens of migrants camped near the U.S.-Mexico border, enduring freezing temperatures while hoping for a chance to cross into the United States. Many huddled around campfires, wrapped in thick clothing and blankets to withstand the cold. Activists from NGOs urged migrants to seek shelter, expressing concern for the children present. A mental health team visited flood and landslide affected areas in Thailand's Nakhon Sai Thammarat to offer support to the elderly and patients with chronic conditions. Many people have been stressed by the experience of escaping the flooding along with property damage. Many families are going back home during the day to assess the damage, only to return to sleep in the evacuation center in the late evening. Investigation is underway in the Wednesday's train crash in Pecos, a small city in western Texas, with cleanup still being taken up. Some cargo cars of the train were carrying hazardous materials. However, authorities confirmed there were no breaches. A Union Pacific cargo train derailed after colliding with a tractor on Wednesday. The crash also caused damage to the Chamber of Commerce building. 2 people were killed and at least 3 others injured in the accident. Llamas and giraffes at the London Zoo on Thursday got an early festive dinner of edible Christmas wreaths and hanging decorations. The Conservation Zoo's tallest residents used their 50-centimetre long tongues to retrieve traditional Christmas dinner vegetables of Brussels sprouts from plastic canisters, while a trio of rare newborn Northern African lion cubs were also welcomed at Whipsnade. Star pastry chef Jan Kovrier describes the fox as a symbol that offers unparalleled creative scope in his brand, stating it embodies a strength beyond his own. With a presence spanning a dozen boutiques in Paris, Dubai and Miami, Kovrier emphasizes his commitment to natural and authentic craftsmanship, reflecting his philosophy in every creation. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Delhi police fires FIR against Congress leader Rahul Gandhi. First visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Kuwait in 43 years, all set to cement historic ties between both the countries. And the IMD issues an orange alert for dense fog in the Delhi NCR region as a cold wave grips the national capital region.
Pollution of all types across the globe is a huge problem. But what is the solution to this? Does it require individual efforts, community action, or state interference? Let's take a look at some of the possibilities, challenges and opportunities.
They have to segregate their waste, manage their organic waste within their premises as far as possible. They have to hand over the rest of the waste, the residual waste, to the authorized waste collector.
When the local administration saw what I had done, it decided to build the drainage system you see here, connecting the whole area to it.
Trees are our lifesavers. They give us oxygen, and it's unfair to harm them by hammering iron nails into them just for the sake of ads.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, the winter session of Indian Parliament to conclude today with the lower house to take up several bills for consideration. Readjustment of representation of scheduled tribes and assembly constituencies of the State of Goa Bill 2024, Carriage of Goods by Sea Bill 2024, Bills of Lading Bill 2024, Oil Fields Regulation and Development Amendment Bill 2024, Boilers Bill 2024, Tribhuvan Sehkari University Bill 2024 will also be introduced. The Upper House of the Parliament to take up Banking Laws Amendment Bill 2024, Disaster Management Amendment Bill 2024 and Railways Amendment Bill 2024 for consideration and passing. And for more, we have Anil Thomas joining us from New Delhi. Well, Anil, yesterday Parliament adjourned for the day and the last day of the winter session. Today, several bills are lined up for consideration. What can we expect?
Well, the winter session of Parliament, it's the final day of the winter session of Parliament. It's capped 4 weeks of high drama that we have seen in Parliament. Ripping remarks, both from the Treasury benches as well as the opposition benches. We've gone to the extent of even charges of attempt to murder against the opposition, and nothing is going to change on the final day. We're going to see a fresh bout of protest that is expected from the opposition today. And the government is trying, especially to constitute the Joint Parliamentary Committee, which is comprising of 27 MPs, 12 Rajya Sabha MPs, as today is the last day of winter session for that One Nation, One Election bill. So the government will be trying to push through at least, constituting the JPC, which is very important because the timeline that's been given for, the One Nation, One Election JPC is to come back with its report in the last week. That's the last Monday of the budget session in the last week. So, there is a timeline that's been set. The members have been added. but we'll have to wait and see, does the parliament function today? But at least, the priority for the government will be to get the JPC going. And, if they can manage that today, especially in the lower house, it's going to be, good business done by, or good transaction or good expectation that the government had from this particular winter session of parliament that they have achieved.
Right. Also, Anil, a lot was expected from this session, but as you said, 4 weeks of high drama is what entailed. Give us an overall of the work done in the parliament in these 4 weeks of the winter session.
Well, it's been a stormy session. There are no two ways to look at this particular winter session of parliament, but the government has been successful, especially when it comes to in the lower house, getting the banking amendment bill that Nirmala Sitharaman moved. Also in the upper house, Hardeep Singh Puri managing to get the oil fields regulation amendment bill. So there have been bills that were moved, that were considered, that were deliberated on. The opposition time and again has been claiming that bills have been rushed through, no proper discussion has taken place. The government has put a full stop on that particular, that particular claim that the opposition has been making. All the bills that were discussed at length. Even when it comes to the one nation, one election, or the 129th amendment to the constitution, along with the Union Territories amendment bill that needed to be brought together, the government was very clear. They were ready to deliberate on the merits of the bill, and they listened to the opposition. And I think that's where the plus point this time around was the winter session. At the end of the winter session, at least the opposition cannot claim that bills were not discussed or the opposition did not get time to raise their points. I think the government has nullified that particular point, and that's a big takeaway. If you look at it from a treasury bench narrative, because they have been very successful in getting this done, and nowhere can the opposition now come out and shout that bills are not being deliberated or bills are being rushed through. The government has been very clear on that particular point, and I think that's where the government stands to gain. This particular session of parliament, though being, pretty accusations and counter accusations that both parties have done. But in the end, if you look at, those 4 beautiful days of deliberations, discussions, and, conclusions that we arrived at, especially when it comes to the discussion on the glorious journey of the 75 years of the drafting of Indian Constitution, some brilliant, wonderful sessions that we have seen in the midst of all this, cacophony of sounds that we have heard, especially when it comes to the opposition trying to disrupt parliament again and again. So all in all, I would say both benches would be happy. The treasury benches would be happy, but they would have liked something more. I think the opposition would be happy that, at least their demand was to get the deliberation discussion on that constitution, drafting of constitution take place, and the government ready to at least dedicate 4 days, 2 in the upper house, 2 in the lower house, and everybody getting to have a say, especially in the glorious journey that India has had when it comes to the drafting of the constitution.
All right, absolutely. Anil, you stay with us while we tell our viewers that trouble mounts for Congress leader and Lok Sabha leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi, hours after the ruling party Bharatiya Janata Party lodged a complaint over allegations pertaining to physical assault and incitement during a scuffle in the parliament. Delhi police filed an FIR against Rahul Gandhi. The case against the former Congress chief was registered under various sections, including 117, 125, 131 and 351 of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Also, a face-off at the parliament entry steps between the opposition and NDA MPs in parliament premises over the alleged insult to B.R. Ambedkar left former Minister Pratap Chandra Sarangi and Mukesh Rajput injured. Also following the incident, the ruling party filed a police complaint against the Congress leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi, accusing him of physical assault and incitement, and sought his indictment under sections of attempt to murder and other charges. And we're joined by Anil again on this. Well, Anil, a big scuffle broke out in Parliament yesterday. As you know, Delhi police also filed an FIR against Rahul Gandhi. Can you tell us more on that?
Well, it's been trouble for Rahul Gandhi on both fronts, both inside and outside the Parliament. He's got no breathing space, especially the peaceful protest that the opposition managed, and then the face-off that followed has resulted in, the Congress at least claiming that it's a badge of honor that if Rahul has been, there is an FIR that's been lodged against Rahul, especially for speaking about the Ambedkar legacy that the Congress is fighting. The Congress claims it's a badge of honor But I think there is too much of trouble that Rahul has got into, especially when it comes to both inside and outside. The two MPs in the hospital, the Rajya Sabha MP from Nagaland, their Pangong Koyank, they're stating that the behavior that Rahul Gandhi did with her was unbecoming of the leader of opposition. It was unparliamentary. Surely trouble, at least in this session of Parliament. Rahul Gandhi refuses to somewhere run away from trouble, if one may put it that way. He's time and again got into it. I think as the leader of opposition, he needs to also understand that somewhere deep down, these kind of things, you need to be careful, especially in Parliament. I think this is where he has his hands full, and I think he has headaches filled days ahead of him, especially when it comes to these two cases that are one inside Parliament that's been brought to the notice of the Rajya Sabha chairman, and the FIR that's been filed against him. There has also been a counter FIR that the Congress has filed. So it's going to be, that's what I'm saying, it's protest versus protest, BJP versus Congress, FIR versus FIR. So it's been a stormy session at the end of the day. And I think Parliament is not meant for that. It's the citadel of democracy. You are there to discuss for the benefit of the people. And at the end of the day, if a slugfest is what we are seeing in Parliament, I think it doesn't go down well for the people inside it and for the world watching it.
All right. Thank you so much, Anil, for all those details. And moving on, the Indian diaspora in Kuwait is elated at the news of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's historic visit to the country. The two-day visit by Prime Minister Modi is coming after over 4 decades by any Indian Prime Minister and is all set to cement the historic ties between the two countries and strengthen the cultural, trade and people-to-people connect between India and Kuwait. Here's a conversation by DD India correspondent Akshay Dongre with several prominent members of the Indian diaspora who are awaiting the arrival of PM Modi to the country.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is making a historic visit to Kuwait. The relation between the two countries have been historically very strong, but it is going to be a huge impetus to the relation between the two countries with this historic visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister in over 40 years.
After Modi ji took charge, our respect in Kuwait and I think worldwide has improved. Indian passport is now one of the very leading passports. Earlier people were trying to immigrate to America, Canada. I think now it's going to reverse immigration that started. So we are in Kuwait, we are very proud of our Indian passport, and Kuwaitis respect us a lot. They respect the Indians a lot.
Already the impact is there when he is sitting in India. But once he comes here, our respect, our Indians as Indians and the India's respect will increase more in Kuwait especially and internationally also.
Everybody individual out of 1.1 million Indians and Kuwaitis which are connected, because it's a host country. They all are very, very excited to meet him, to greet him, and everybody say, Modi hai, to mumkin hai. Because the kind of work he has done in India, the kind of connect he has with all the Indians in Kuwait, with all the community, irrespective of any community, this is unparalleled and unmatchable.
This visit hopefully will bring and take bilateral relations to a new level. We've been waiting for this for a long time. We are aware that some developments may take place that will help the community as a whole, and we are really excited about it, and I think his visit will create some new impetus with the new government in Kuwait as well.
Modi! 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 Modi hai to mumkin hai!
Modi hai to mumkin hai!
Modi hai to mumkin hai is what the Indian community here has to say, the Indian diaspora, and as the experts have also been saying that this is the community that forms the backbone of also the Kuwaiti society as well. So clearly excitement brewing up before the visit of the Indian Prime Minister here in the country. With camera person Shiva, I'm Akshay Dongre, DD India.
Well, India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri will visit Mauritius today. The visit marks the first high-level bilateral engagement between the two countries after the formation of the new government in the island nation led by Dr. Naveen Chandra Ramagulam. The visit is a continuation of the regular high-level exchanges between the two countries and reflects the priority India attaches to its relation with Mauritius under its Vision Sagar, Africa Forward policy and commitment to Global South. India and Mauritius share age-old ties rooted in shared history, culture and tradition, and encompasses cooperation across several sectors. The visit will be an opportunity to further advance our bilateral ties with Mauritius. And India celebrates the 61st Foundation Day of the Sahastra Seema Bal or SSB at Frontier Headquarters in West Bengal city, Guri. Union Home Minister Amit Shah would be attending the parade ceremony and inauguration of newly constructed residential complex of Border Guarding Force at ICP, Agartala and Petropol. SSB remains committed to national security and the safety of border areas residents. The force remains vigilant in preventing illegal movements along the border and takes strict measures to curb unlawful activities on the Nepal-Bhutan border. And on Thursday, Home Minister Amit Shah chaired a high-level security review meeting on Jammu and Kashmir in New Delhi on Thursday. Addressing the meeting, the Home Minister said that in line with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's zero-tolerance policy against terrorism, will achieve the goal of terror-free Jammu and Kashmir at the earliest, and all resources will be made available for this. The Minister appreciated efforts of the security agencies for a significant decline in terrorist incidents, infiltration and recruitment of youth in terrorist organizations. And India's premier military R&D agency DRDO and the top university Indian Institute of Technology or IIT Delhi have transferred their designed and developed prototypes and technologies to private and public sector industries. The Centre for Excellence of DRDO and IIT Delhi have developed clothing for extremely cold climates and bulletproof jackets, the agreements for commercialization of which were signed today.
To create such an industry, such an ecosystem, which will help us not only becoming Atmanirbhar but also becoming technology leaders. So it's very good to see now the vision translating into actual demonstration of what such a center of excellence can achieve. Although we have 15 centers of excellence, I want to use this opportunity to congratulate IIT Delhi, because this is the first center of excellence where this transition has really happened.
और हमारी सर्विसेज सोल्जर्स के लिए एक्चुअली इम्प्लीमेंट हो जाए, तो ये हमारे लिए एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण स्टेप है. फर्स्ट स्टेप towards seeing that we can actually build technology which can scale and make a difference for our services and our armed forces. We want to provide, through our knowledge and our research, a competitive edge for our soldiers and our services.
Well, the Indian Meteorological Department has issued an orange alert for dense fog in the Delhi NCR region for Friday, followed by yellow alert for Saturday as a cold wave grips the national capital region. Cold waves and severe weather conditions are expected to cover major parts of northwest India till 21st of December. Isolated cold waves might occur from 22nd December to 23rd December. Severe cold wave conditions are forecast to get severe in East Rajasthan in coming days. Similarly, Jammu and Kashmir, West Rajasthan and Ladakh are expected to experience it till 23rd of December. The Delhi NCR region is projected to have clear skies along with dense fog and smog. Meanwhile, in the national capital, Delhi Traffic Police has intensified vehicle checks after the Graded Response Action Plan. Stage 4 was executed to curb the air quality. And still to come in DD India News Hour. Amazon workers launched the largest strike against it in U.S. history to maximize pressure on the company amid holiday shopping season. ICC approves of India's 2025 Champions Trophy matches between India and Pakistan at neutral venue. And Christmas market opens in Syria's Damascus after Assad's ouster.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Some business news now. The Bank of England on Thursday ended its last meeting of the year with a decision to leave interest rates unchanged after UK inflation rose to a 8-month high. 3 members of the Monetary Policy Committee voted to reduce rates, while 6 were in favour of a hold. The Bank of England's 9-member Monetary Policy Committee kept its main interest rate unchanged at 4.75% after having cut by 25 basis points in November. Its second cut this year after starting to ease monetary policy in August, its first cut since the pandemic in 2020. According to the data released, the BOE reduced its key interest rate in August for the first time since early 2020 from a 16-year high of 5.25% as UK inflation returned to normal levels. UK inflation had soared to above 11% in October 2022, the highest level in more than 4 decades. And moving on, thousands of Amazon workers on Thursday launched what they call the largest strike against Amazon in U.S. history, seeking to maximize pressure on the retail behemoth at the height of the holiday shopping season. The job action targets 7 Amazon facilities based around the United States. Workers in the pickets include Amazon employees who are affiliated with the Teamsters labor union and truckers who transport packages in and out of the facilities. Warehouse workers in cities including New York, Atlanta and San Francisco are taking part in the largest strike against Amazon. The company, however, said it does not expect any effect on its operations during one of the busiest times of the year. And Germany's federal and state government's tax revenue rose 9.0% in November compared with the same month last year. The finance ministry said in its monthly report on Friday, reaching a total of $63.43 billion. A positive trend has persisted in the first 11 months of the year, despite some volatility. In its latest forecast, the German government expects the economy to contract by 0.2% in 2024, which would make it the only member of the group of 7 major industrial democracies to post shrinking output for the second year running. And time now for some sports news. In women's cricket, India defeated West Indies in their third T20 innings in Mumbai on Thursday night to clinch the series 2-1. Smriti Mandhana and Richa Ghosh's 50s along with Radha Yadav's 4-wicket haul propelled India to the win. Top batters quick-fire knock and handy cameos by Jemima Rodrigues and Raghvi Bisht saw India score a mammoth target of 217. Meanwhile, West Indies finished on 157 for 9 in 20 overs to hand India a 63 runs victory. Earlier in the week, India received a 9-wicket thrash by West Indies in the second T20 innings. In the opener, India was clinical as they handed a 47 runs defeat to West Indies. And the International Cricket Council said on Thursday that matches between India and Pakistan at ICC events that either nation is due to host will be played at neutral venues. The arrangement will apply to 2 major ICC events next year, which are the Men's Champion Trophy in Pakistan and the Women's ODI World Cup in India. The rule will also be in place for the Men's T20 World Cup in 2026, which India will co-host alongside Sri Lanka, and the Women's T20 World Cup in 2028 in Pakistan. The neutral venue will be proposed by the tournament host board and will need to be approved by the ICC. And India is set to host Para-Athletics World Championship 2025 in New Delhi. This event is scheduled from September 26th to October 5th at the city's Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium next year. It marks the first time India will host such a prestigious global para-sport event. Additionally, the venue will also welcome the World Para-Athletics Grand Prix from March 11 to 13th. The 2025 Championships, being the 12th edition, will see Asia hosting for the 4th time, expecting participation from over 1,000 athletes across more than 100 countries. Well, a Christmas market opened in Damascus on Thursday, 10 days after the ouster of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime. Visitors flocked to the market, where they strolled around and took pictures next to Christmas decorations. They expressed hope for Syria to be rebuilt as a country for all sects and religions. And before we wrap up, a reminder, India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati has recently launched Waves, entering the field of OTT platform. Waves provides a complete infotainment ecosystem to digital media and OTT audiences. If you also want great content for free, then download Waves today. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Vipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.